All right, let's talk about the border. There was a big Border Patrol Council meeting today, Chad. Guess who was there?
Who?
Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema. She's just out of the meeting. She has just decided to call us in. And Senator Sinema, nice to have you on the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's great to be back with you guys. And I'm delighted to be down in Yuma again, meeting with the guys who are keeping our state and our country safe.
All right. How upset are they that our president is ignoring them and the Arizona-Mexico border?
You know, things are really rough right now for members of the Customs and Border Patrol. I heard from the guys at our Border Patrol Council today that morale is low and they're losing seasoned agents and officers, which, of course, is not good for the long-term security of the interior of our country. As you guys know, I serve as the chair of the Border Management Subcommittee. So I've been taking some time recently to think about what can we do to help protect these men and women. How can we ensure that they are paid appropriately, that they are treated appropriately, and that most importantly, that they have the tools and resources to do their job effectively. And I think that's what they're frustrated about right now, is that they're spending a lot of time processing asylum seekers and migrants who are entering in between our ports of entry, and they have precious little time to do the work of interdiction, catching the bad guys who are smuggling drugs and smuggling people for human trafficking purposes. And so it was a sobering conversation.
Senator, when you were talking to, and I'm sure you got to talk to several of them a little bit off the record. I've got several friends who are border agents because I live in the Valley of the Dirt people out in Pinal County, and we have a lot of border agents there. And we talk all the time. And some of the things they bring up is the fact that they feel not only abandoned, but off the record, as they would say, you know, is the fact that they feel like this administration in particular just doesn't seem to care who comes here at all. And they're feeling like, you know what, it's not just them versus people coming across, it's them versus their own government.
I heard that sentiment today in talking with these guys about the work that they're doing. And I asked them about a recent meeting that they had down here in Yuma with Secretary Mayorkas. And frankly, what they said to me was, look, we think he's a good guy. We supported his nomination. But we think he doesn't have the power to implement some of these changes that we need in order to be effective at our jobs. You know, they've been pulled away from doing their work in between those ports of entry, interdicting crime and criminal activity. And instead, they've been facing these surges of migrants coming across and spending a lot of time transporting migrants and processing migrants. And, guys, that's why I introduced a bill with Senator John Cornyn of Texas last year. We're garnering more support and building support for our legislation right now. But he and I both spent some time at the Yuma, Tucson, and then actually spent some time down in South Texas visiting all these ports of entry, visiting the processing centers, and hearing directly from the men and women of our Border Patrol. And what they said is, they need more resources and support to address this ongoing crisis, and they want to be able to do their jobs. So we introduced a bill to create these regional processing centers and to surge more resources down to the border so that these men and women are getting the support they need to do their jobs effectively. We're hoping to continue garnering support in the Senate from both parties and add more people to the work that we're doing so that our CBP guys are not stretched so thin, and that they have not just the dollars, but also the support they need to do their jobs effectively.
Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema is joining us. She's out of a meeting with the Border Patrol Council out in Yuma. And I know you talked to the president. When you talk to him, does he care at all about the border? Because I'm not one of these guys that says, oh, well, there's a Democrat in office and they don't care about the border. No, Barack Obama built a lot of wall. Barack Obama
deported a lot of people.
Yeah.
Deporter in chief, they called him.
Right. So I don't buy that stuff. What I do buy is that this president doesn't care. He's totally ignored it. There aren't any policies. When you look him in the face and say, you're not doing anything where I live, what does he say?
Well, the president and I have spent most of our time talking about infrastructure. You guys know that that was the issue that I picked up and carried and pushed till we got it across the finish line last year. So we haven't spent a ton of time talking about the border directly. But when I have spoken to him about the border, what I do is make sure that he understands how important it is to protect and support our men and women in green and in blue. So helping modernize, improve, and build out our land ports of entry so that the folks who do our customs work can help the commerce and the flow of goods and people move appropriately, but also helping our men and women in green who are the sworn law enforcement officers who are supposed to be interdicting the bad guys, right? Catching the drugs, catching the smuggling, and catching the folks who aren't doing what's right. And that's why what I've said to the president is, look, we've got to stop bad actors from coming into our country. We know that we have to have a mix of physical barriers, a mix of technology, and boots on the ground to do that effectively. So my recent conversations with the administration have really been pushing on the bipartisan bill that Senator Cornyn and I passed in late 2020. We did a security technology bill, went into law in 2020. We're pushing the Biden administration to implement it. We are asking the secretary to improve technology development, but we're also pushing the White House to acknowledge the fact that we've got to have boots on the ground, which means paying our officers well, making sure they have the support and morale they need to do their jobs effectively, and that we're filling in those border gaps of those physical barriers where they make sense along our southern border.
Yeah.
So I just keep pushing the issue, and I'm going to keep doing that day in and day out, guys.
Fantastic. Talking to Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema. She joins the program today. Speaking of another border, obviously you know what's going on in Ukraine. Everybody does. You guys will be back next week. I know that Chuck Schumer wants an emergency, meeting to sit down and talk about what's the next steps and where we could potentially go from this. You were at U of Arizona yesterday talking about aerospace, but also talking about the Ukraine. What's your take on what's currently going on with the Ukraine and where sanctions might go and what else might be needed?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. This will come as no surprise to folks in Arizona. My number one priority is the safety and security of Arizonans and all of the American service members who are risking their lives to protect each of us. So I had in recent weeks reviewed both public information and classified information. And as I said yesterday when I was in Tucson, I am deeply concerned by Putin's military positioning on Ukraine's border. I'm very concerned about the threats that he's making to America's national security interests and allies. And I support, as do my colleagues on both sides of the aisle in the Senate, support legislation that would provide Ukraine with the tools that she needs to defend herself. So right now I've been working closely with the Department of Defense and our folks down at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, where we are mobilized and ready to join a NATO response force if called. I expect when we go back to the Senate on Monday that we will have even deeper conversations about Congress's response to Putin's unchecked aggression. You know, the statements that he made yesterday were not only factually inaccurate, they were incredibly aggressive and threatening towards Ukraine. And all of us as allies around the world see that this is escalating and need to take action quickly.
Last one for Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema. Senator Mark Kelly says, you know what, we're worried about gas prices because of this situation. Do you like his idea of getting rid of the gas tax? Is that really going to help anything? Are you supporting that?
Well, you know, the issues that I hear about every day from Arizonans are, one, the high cost of gas, and two, the high cost of groceries. So people want their lives to go back to normal, but they're really hurt by rising prices. And it's frustrating to go to a store and see empty shelves. So I think the best way to solve this issue is to focus on supply chain challenges. We've got to boost manufacturing of the critical components like semiconductors that are part of the reason why we've got these supply chain shortages. And I believe we've got to work across the aisle to help Arizona families keep more money in their pockets. Now, I appreciate Senator Kelly's leadership on the bill. I'm reviewing his proposal, and I'm focused on supporting targeted and thoughtful policies because, as everyone knows, I believe a lean and efficient government is the best thing to do to help avoid price hikes.
Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, you guys, so much. I appreciate you.